Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Amanda. Good morning. It's been over 7 months since we've been isolated from each other because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 224,000 American lives have been lost to it. I feel bad that I have to report this on the progress of this disease, but it's the single most urgent problem that we face every day. It has shut our economy down. Children can't go to school. People have lost jobs. We can't do things like shopping or eating in restaurants. And we can't gather as family and friends. And most importantly, we can't have our services in our temple. As a minister, I feel it is important for me to provide a Buddhist perspective for our members to help us during this dangerous time. It's as if we're at war and we have to consider the risk of going shopping in that there may be a bomb that goes off, but we're all somewhat vulnerable. And the situation may be getting worse with the weather getting colder and for many of us to be forced inside. Now, religion becomes the most important when it deals with real life issues. And the Buddhist teachings have helped millions over many cultures, over centuries of time. And so it is truth and not belief that will guide us through these challenges. The tragedy of this situation is that it affects almost all aspects of our lives. As I said, economy, jobs, school, shopping, eating in restaurants, we're unable to have family gatherings, and not able to have religious services, even funeral. And of course, most seriously, 224,000 lives have been lost. And so all of this could have been resolved by now if we had a national unified medical response to this virus. Other countries have done this. Yet for months, we have lacked sufficient testing, contact tracing, and in some areas, adequate medical supply. And we have contradictory advice from leaders who cloud the issue of truth. The most troubling factor is that many are persuaded by belief and not truth. Science, statistics, and history tell us that wearing a mask works and staying distant from others really reduces the transmission of this disease from person to person. This is truth. All medical authorities and doctors throughout the world agree that wearing a mask helps to prevent the spread of this disease. It's much better to prevent an illness than to treat it later. Yet the president holds rallies and events and ridicules those who wear masks and promotes events with crowds with no social distancing. This is an instance where belief of someone's word is taken over truth. People are suffering and dying. We might take lessons from the Buddha and Shinran to determine what is belief and what is true. We all have assumptions that our beliefs align with truth, and yet that's not always true. We all have beliefs and we need something to guide our lives. But from childhood, our beliefs constantly change. Remember Santa Claus, superheroes, vampires, and haunted houses? These are some of the things that we believed in. And a good scientist will tell you that a discovered truth is only provisional. It's only true until a deeper truth is discovered. And the Buddha wisely advised us not to take any teaching, even his, without testing it out on ourselves. Be a light unto ourselves. So as modern Americans, we're constantly bombarded with advertisements on TV, on the internet, newspapers, magazines, and now even robo-telephone calls. They're challenging our beliefs in order to sell us something. The more information and education we have may help us determine what is true. And how might we discern truth from many beliefs that we have? Truth is immense, and beliefs are means of connecting to the truth. One way to imagine truth is to consider it like the ocean. Beliefs might be considered like the shore of the ocean of truth. Is the ocean the gentle waves on a sunny, peaceful beach? Or is it the icy waters next to glaciers? Or is it the angry waves crashing against the rocks? The Buddha informs us that we are like blind men who are trying to describe the truth of the elephant. Each blind man describes a portion of the elephant as though it is the whole truth. The entire elephant is more than the trunk, ear, tusk, leg, or tail. A wise person is able to listen and learn more about how others see truth. We rely on people that have more knowledge in the field to help us, but being smart isn't enough. Would you depend on a cardiologist, a heart physician to do brain surgery on us? If you do, you might need brain surgery to correct your thinking. Or would you trust me to give you financial advice on making investments? If you say yes to that, you might really need a brain transplant. We need experts in the right field. Sometimes seeing the truth is difficult because of how it's presented. Remember, I've talked about teenage mentality. If you argue with a teenage son or daughter, you remember that they were loud, rebellious, righteous, uncompromising, and low on logic. We see this either or. This position is dualistic. And we think these people might think that most things are just two-sided, either or. But most things are many-sided. And this two-sided thought is a shallow opinion. Now compare this with a both and consideration, which is open to many possibilities. The truth of an elephant is closer to the truth if we include each opinion. So the elephant does have a rope-like tail, a spear-like tusk, a snake-like trunk, tree-like leg. And so truth is determined by the inclusion of many views. This is one of the strengths of democracy. Individual beliefs are included, but the truth is determined by the majority, not the few. The either-or belief is actually a childhood strategy, and it's worked as we were children. And I use the teenage example because I think we can remember ourselves or our children at that age when we were arguing and thinking that we were right. This is what Shinran calls our evil or ignorant self. This is our shadow. And it stays with us as adults. It stays in the background, but it may come out when we feel stressed or threatened. Our conduct is driven more by emotions than by thought, and we're unable to expand our thinking to see truth. Growing up, I had arguments with my mother. I remember when I was a teenager and thinking I was right, and I would argue with her and she would get stressed and she would regress back into her teenage mentality. And so we would have these heated arguments, either or, no real solution. But I rarely had an argument with my father. He just let me be a stupid teenager. And he was hoping that at some point I would mature. This was the both and adult approach, two things together. And so it's easier to see this either or mentality in other people. It's hard to see it in ourselves, but other people see it in us when we get upset. This is Shinran's teachings of being foolish, or a gombu. We may have to wait and hope that we can wake up and mature. Engaging in these dualistic arguments only highlights the opposite. But when we put our two hands together, the either, the or, and we put them together in the gassho position, we see that this is both and, together in oneness, the two opposing sides. And we could recite the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So sometimes we must acknowledge that the stalemate condition of no progress where neither side wins, and we must be contented with that. But often the two sides are not equivalent. One side must wait until the belief teenage position matures to closer to a truth level position of an adult response. I'm familiar with belief over truth. As a former dentist, I constantly advise patients how to have good dental hygiene, to brush and to floss. And this was dental truth. And yet some people had their own beliefs that this was not important. Now those people who had this false belief were the ones who kept my dental practice very busy. And you might remember a TV ad some years ago where they would say that 4 out of 5 dentists recommended that you chew sugarless gum. What if I told you I was that 5th dentist and I recommended you chew gum with sugar in it? Would you come to me for dental treatment knowing that I was promoting dental decay and making money from that? And that's why it's so mystifying why people choose belief over truth in not wearing a mask. However, with the coronavirus, the consequences could be deadly. And so the problem with people not complying with wearing a mask is that other lives are in danger. It's similar to drinking or texting and driving. The teenage mind might endanger themselves, but it does affect the lives of others. And so until most of us in the entire country have beliefs that are closer to truth and follow the health authorities, this health situation of the COVID-19 will not improve. But it's reassuring to know that most of us are compliant with the medical authority. And it's important for those of us who have a broader and deeper experience of truth to instruct others so that they're not harmed by someone's narrow belief. We must rely on those who are more expert on this subject. We are now in a political season, and we see this teenage mentality, and it's evident everywhere. What is belief? What is truth? The ugly part is when personal attacks cloud the issues. However, there is a great example of the both-and condition. The governor race in Utah is a great example of an adult behavior. The 2 candidates, Chris Peterson, a Democrat, and Spencer Cox, a Republican, they have made ads together stating that they are running on the issues. They are treating each other with respect. And on their ad, they look like 2 friends running for the high school student body president. There is no animosity. They are setting an example of 2 adults competing for one office. They realize that the winner will benefit being closer to the truth by listening to the other side. Now we remember President Bush, a Republican, asked Norm Mineta, a Democrat, to be transportation secretary in his cabinet. So this is really the truth of both and. So let us remember that when we put our 2 hands together, it's an either or. And we come together and we have both and, the oneness that we display with the Gassho. So please join me in reciting the Nembutsu, which reminds us that we are always in oneness with our Mida and all others. So together, Gassho, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Amanda.